Any installation of a TruckBoss deck, I like to think of it in 4 easy steps. First being rails and legs, second being the surface, third being the sides, and fourth being the additional accessories that you get put on there. We'll be going through this in those 4 different steps. We're now ready to go on to step 4, the final step of installing your TruckBoss deck. To begin step 4, we're going to install our front bulkhead seal. I've grabbed my front bulkhead seal from one of the boxes when we were doing our surface install. I've grabbed 2 small rail angle brackets from our box 6. And I've grabbed 2 5/16 carriage bolts from box 6 and 2 5/16 serrated flange nuts from box 6. Because all truck boxes are different widths, we now need to measure between the different rails to get our width and cut the front bulkhead to size. I've hooked my tape measure on the outside rail of the opposite side and measured to the outside of the rail on the driver's side. We can see that it's 62 3/4, so I'm going to cut my front bulkhead down 1/8 shy of that, so 62 5/8. I've now cut my front bulkhead down to size. I'm going to insert both of our carriage bolts into the front capture channel, starting with the driver's side. We'll repeat the same on the passenger side. I'm going to take the front bulkhead, insert it into the space left by the toe kick right at the front module, right here. And we're just going to gently slide it along. Once we're flush with the end of the rail, I know that it's covering up the other side as well. Now that the front bulkhead has been slid into position, I'm going to make sure the bolt is nice and close. Insert our small rail angle bracket. We'll loosely fit a 5/16 carrot serrated flange nut on, as you can see there. And we're just going to put pressure with my finger down on the foam rubber to get a seal. Push it forward. I'm going to take my 1/2 inch socket wrench and tighten it into place. Repeat for the other side. Now that we have our front bulkhead into place, we're going to put our cab guard in. You can get that from box 7. We'll open this guy up. As with all TruckBoss boxes, we have the packing list, which you should be sure to review upon opening. You see that you have the ramp bar, which has most of our hardware on it. We'll put that off to the side for now. We have our cab guard, which is mostly assembled. We just need to put our cab guard gussets on. Put this on the cardboard box, and we'll attach our gussets. As you can see on our cab guard, the angle is longer at the bottom and shorter at the top. That way that the cab guard will actually be able to rake forward towards the cab, as most cabs are slanted forward. This way the TruckBoss cab guard complements the truck. So how we're going to install it is taking our install hardware bag. We're going to open it up and we're going to remove 4 5/16 carriage bolts. The rest of this hardware is for the ramp bar. We're also going to take out 4 5/16 serrated flange nuts. Now that we have our carriage bolts into place, I'm going to put our passenger side bracket on. I can tell it's the right bracket because when I fit it up, it's flush all the way around the bottom of the flange. Once it's in place, I will secure it with our 2 serrated flange nuts and our 1/2 inch impact gun. Repeat for the other side, and then we'll install it. I've now assembled my cab guard, brought it on my deck surface. I've pushed my sides out slightly just so I can insert the hardware for the cab guard. They're going to go into the second from the front capture channel, approximately 2 inches from the end. So I'll just get them close. And I'll put my cab guard in. Notice the hook on the cab guard is going to hook the toe kick on the front. I've engaged one bolt, engage the other. Once it's in place, I'll loosely fit the serrated flange nuts. Then I'll just do a final squaring and tighten the nuts down. This can be done by just measuring the outside of the flange. And just tighten the nuts down. We now have our cab guard into place, so we're going to move on to installing our rear flapper gate. I've gone back to box 6 and I've grabbed both of our flapper hinge mechanisms. There's a driver side and a passenger side. I've also grabbed 2 1/2-inch sheet metal screws from box 6. And I grabbed our actual flap from one of our surface modules. We're going to assemble the driver's side. You can tell it's the driver's side because the flange is on this side and the hinge is at the top. We're just going to insert that into our flap. And we'll do the same for the passenger side. We need to tuck the wiring just out of the way. This can be done by just moving this flex inside of the lower capture channel of the rail capture. And that way the flange of the flapper gate will cover it up when we install it. Starting on the driver's side, we're going to insert the carriage bolts into the rail. We're going to do the same on the passenger side. We're going to move the flapper gate into its approximate position. Its position is determined by where the tailgate is actually going to end. So at first we're going to take an educated guess, which is going to be the edge of your truck box. We're going to try and get the rubber nice and close in there to get a good seal. We're going to push up on the angle. We're going to secure one bolt. We're going to do the same on the other side. Pushing up. Locking down. And we're going to test it by shutting the tailgate. If your tailgate shuts and you have a little bit of contact between the rubber and the tailgate all the way along, you can tell you have a good seal, position's good, and you can lock down the other bolt. We're now going to make sure that the flapper hinge is centered. This can be done by measuring off the inside of the rail. As we can see, it's 1 5/8. Measuring the same distance from the inside of the rail to the inside of this flap on the other side. Once both measurements are the same, we know that it's centered. Then we'll take our 2 screws, Phillips head, and we'll just put it underneath to lock it in the center position. Same on the other side. Now that our flapper gate's been installed, we're ready to install the rear hardware for holding down the rear of the deck. I've grabbed 2 of these small rail angle brackets, and I've grabbed 4 5/16 serrated flange nuts and 4 5/16 carriage bolts. We're going to take our first carriage bolt and insert it into the inside of the rail. We'll take our second carriage bolt and we'll insert it into the center of the rear of the deck. We'll slide it over the outside. We'll take one of our rail angle brackets. We'll insert it into top bolt into the outside and secure with serrated flange nuts. These are designed to hold the deck surface down so you can tie off to the rear without having an uplift. I like to use an impact gun for the center. And use a 1/2-inch wrench to get the top. Repeat for the other side. Now that we have our flapper gate on and we have our rear hold downs installed, we're ready to put our ramp bar on. Now our ramp bars were going to require a little bit of assembly, so we're just going to use the rest of the remaining hardware from box 7 where our cab guard came out of, and we'll disassemble the ramp bar. First step of assembling the ramp bar is making sure that there are 4 5/16 carriage bolts inside of the capture channel. Now that they're in there, we're going to secure the bobtail ends of the ramp bar. This can be done by using the Phillips stainless steel fastener and securing both ends. So we'll take our stainless steel fastener, insert it onto our Phillips head on our driver. Make sure that this bobtail bracket lines up with the 2 screw bosses that are inside the ramp bar. To the fat side down. We'll start the one side. We'll put the other screw boss into place. And just secure it. Repeat for the other side. Now we're going to take our ramp bar with the channel facing down. We're just going to rest it on top of the rails. You just bring it up to the end. The center bracket is going to align how far it's going to come out. So we'll push 2 of the bolts in the ramp bar to the outsides. 2 of them are going to go to the center. We're now going to take 1 5/16 carriage bolt, slide it on the inside of the rail. We'll take one of our small rail angle brackets. We'll slide it into place with a carriage bolt from the ramp bar on the top side and the carriage bolt from the rail on the side. We'll take our serrated flange nuts, loosely fit it into place. We'll do the same on the other side. Now that I have my rail angle brackets in the right place, I'm going to take the remaining 2 carriage bolts. I'm going to insert them on either side of the hole that's on the axis of the rear intermediate. We're going to use those to insert our rear ramp bar bracket, making sure the 2 large holes are pointing out towards the rear as they're used as tie down points. Once you have it fitted in position, we'll loosely put the serrated flange nuts on. We'll center the bracket. This can be either done by eyeballing off of the inside of the K or measuring off of either side to make sure that it's even. So now we're going to secure the inside of the bracket. We're going to center the ramp and make sure that it's even on both sides. This can be done by closing your sides and making sure that the gap between the bobtail bracket is the same on either side, and that it's even from the end of the rail, which it is here. Once satisfied with that, I'm going to secure the rail angle brackets. And I'm going to secure the center bracket. And finally, the top nuts of the rail angle brackets that hold the outside of the ramp bar. The ramp bar is now installed. The next step is we're going to open up box 8 and put our ramp hangers in. Open up the plastic on the side. When you open up box 8, you'll see a bag. This contains the ramp stop and all the hardware we'll need to put the ramp hangers in place. First step is we'll move our ramp pocket up. Put our right angle bracket so it faces the outside. We'll put our button head screw on the inside. That way it doesn't interfere with where the ramp is sliding in. Take our serrated flange nut. We'll try to position it so it's in the center. Bring it up as high as you can. In line with the hole that's corresponding on the ramp pocket itself. And tighten. Repeat this for all 4 holes on the ramp pockets. On the ramp pocket, there is a little bit of orientation. On one side, we have approximately 12 inches to the end of the ramp pocket to the first hanger. And on the other side, it's 7 inches from the outside of the ramp pocket to the outside of the hanger. We want the longer end, the 12-inch, to be at the rear. This way we can make sure that this one, as we have the longer side, with these angle brackets on the outside, is our passenger side, the other side being our driver's side. So now I'm just going to position my ramp pockets in the box on their appropriate sides. Next step, I'm going to install the ramp stop. For this, I'm going to need 2 5/16 carriage bolts and 2 5/16 serrated flange nuts. We're now going to insert the 2 5/16 carriage bolts onto the passenger side of the center of the deck. This ramp stop helps stop the ramp from hitting the front bulkhead of your truck. It also protects the wiring. So you just want to go slightly off center, but as close to center as you can on the passenger side. Once you're happy with it being perpendicular to the front, now tighten it in. We'll move on to the next step. We're going to do the passenger side ramp pocket first because we want it as far over to the side of the rail as possible so we avoid contact with the winch contactor that could potentially be on the other side. So we'll start by inserting our hardware. Will be 2 bolts per end of the ramp pocket. And then I'll fit our ramp pocket into place. Gonna line up the hardware. It's good to start with one end and then you just loosely fit it, hold it in place, and then move on to the other end. But make sure that you don't tighten up the one end as it won't give you enough space to put the nuts on the other end. Once that's loose in there, You can see it's held into place. Now, move this hardware in. And we'll just push it off to the side as much as we can so we have maximum amount of space on the other side. Once we're happy with where it is, we'll take our gun to get the one side. We'll use our wrench to get the other side. We've now secured our passenger side ramp pocket. Now I'm going to install our driver's side. Basically the same method. We insert our hardware into the capture channels, and then we'll measure off for the correct spacing for the ramp pocket. Once we have this hardware loosely on there, we'll take our tape measure and we'll measure that it's in the right place. So for a fat ramp, it would be 53 inches. The insides. He's got a little more around there. So I have 53 inches there. So I can tighten this one side in. Tighten the one for now so we can still move the other side. I'll do 53 inches again for this side. Now we have 53 inches. Tighten this side. Using the gun for the outsides, a wrench for the insides. We're solid. Another method for spacing, which is very helpful, is getting a stick and measuring out 53 inches and using this as your spacer, rather than using a tape measure. We're now going to go through the electrical that's left on our TruckBoss. For a base deck with fixed sides, you do not need to go through these steps. To complete the electrical, we're going to grab our electrical bag out of our sides box. And I'm going to start with our connection at the front. To secure our front electrical connection, I need 2 red posi locks from our side bags. And I'm going to need some sort of cutting device. I have side cutters to trim the T-slot that'll cover our electrical. I'm underneath the deck at the very front. I've got my wire from the inside of the rail capture, and I'm going to connect it up with the center of our deck wiring right here. All these ends have been pre-cut and stripped, so I can just take the remaining casing off of the wires and I'll connect them up with our posi locks. Red to red, black to black. Now I have my connections done and I'm ready to hide them up in our capture channel using our plastic T-slot, which is supplied in box 6. I'm just going to make sure how long it is. I'm going to have to trim 2 inches off of this one, approximately. And starting with the end that's closest to the ramp stop, I'm going to feed the wires up just so they don't get damaged by anything that's coming up the center. You're just going to insert the T-slot with the wires above. Any excess can just be shoved off to the outside part of the deck surface. We're now going to install the caps on all 4 sides of the TruckBoss, starting with the driver's side front. I've grabbed my driver's side front plastic cap, I can tell because this is the way it inserts into the aluminum extrusion, and I have an amber light on the front. I've also grabbed 2 red posi locks, 2 screws out of the bag from our sides, as long as with 1 star washer. To install our end caps, I'm going to pull our side out a little bit, just so I have a little more room. First, we're going to put our posi locks onto our end cap wires, which have already been previously stripped. As you can see, we have 2 wires coming out of our side, which are already been previously cut, and the casings can be taken off. Now, what's different about this wiring is the color codes do not match right up. So black actually goes to red, white goes to black. There's only one way that these LEDs will work. So if they do not work right away, this is the first thing to look for. Now that our wiring is connected, I'm going to neatly tuck it into our plastic cap. And then we're going to insert the plastic cap into the profile of the side, making sure that we don't pinch any wires. Once that's inserted, we'll take a Phillips screwdriver, and we'll take our screw, which has our star washer on it, and insert it into the bottom slot. There's a corresponding hole in the bottom of the extrusion. We'll put pressure on the cap so it's nice and flush. Then tighten. And then we'll take our remaining screw and feed it through the front. There's a screw boss inside the aluminum extrusion. Again, making sure that it's flush along the side, and tighten. Repeat this for the other side. We're now going to do our rear end caps. You can tell it's a rear end cap because of how it corresponds with the sides, and it has a red LED in it. Like the front wiring, the orientation of the colors is white to black and black to red. We can secure it with our 2 posi locks that we grabbed from our sides bag. Once our wiring is done, like the front, we're going to tuck the wires so they're nice and neatly inside of the cap, out of the way when we install, including this black plastic. Shove the light on. We're going to take our 2 screws. Remember, it's important to have the one with the washer on the bottom. We'll start with it into the corresponding hole, shove the light so we get it nice and flush. Tighten into place. We'll take the top one, insert it. Again, making sure that the light is flush with the side. Just makes for a clean install. And tighten it into place. Do the same for the other side. Our final step is to wire the TruckBoss into the truck. This can be done with the wiring that's already been installed in your rail capture. Just take our rubber band off. You'll see that we'll have 2 reds and 2 blacks coming out of this. One that we supply is an auxiliary if you want to be putting on lights or something like that underneath. The other has our trailer plugs, which the TruckBoss can either be plugged into a trailer auxiliary, or we recommend cutting it and actually hardwiring it into your running lights. So now we're going to show the method of tying your lights into your tail lights. We're going to do this by cutting off the trailer plugs. Our first step is to remove our tail light. This is different orientation for every truck. On this one we have a 5/16. It's basically the same process as if you'd be changing out a tail light bulb. I've now fed the wires through our stake pocket just behind the rear leg, and I'll be able to pull them through. I'm going to pull any slack that we have just to make for a clean install. Now that we have our tail light exposed, we're just going to find out which ones are positive and which ones are ground for our tail light running lights. These are the wires that we're going to be tying into. I happen to know the color code on our F-150, where the positive is our purple and white stripe and our ground is our black and green stripe. This is different for every model of truck and most model years. Consult your owner's manual if you want to get to know which one has the right color code. I'm going to trim up some of our excess wire here just so I don't have a lot of it in there. I'm going to strip the first 1/4 inch of the wires for my posi locks. I'm going to take our supplied inline fuse. I'm going to tie it into our positive. It's just a spike connector. You put the female part on first, and then spin the assembly on. Making sure not to cross thread. Once it's spun on, the spike on the end of the connector will automatically engage. We'll now take our other supplied spike connector to tie into the ground of the running light. You can see when you open it up, you'll end up with a male and a female. We're going to slide the female onto the ground wire, and we'll just spin it in place. And then we'll take our pre-stripped wires, red and black, red being our power wire, black being our ground. We'll use the red posi lock on the end of our fuse for our power. We'll use our ground wire as our black. Again, slide into the blue spike connector and to connect it onto our ground. Once both wires have been connected, make sure that our 5-amp fuse is secure by just pressing it into place, and we'll test it by turning on our running lights. Now I'm going to turn on our running lights to test out our electrical connection. We're just going to go around the truck and make sure that all 4 of my LEDs are lighting up, so I don't have any electrical connections that are wrong. All 4 of my marker lights are on, and I can secure our tail light once again. So I'm not going to use the auxiliary wires that we supply on our truck harness for this install. So I'm going to take our auxiliary wires, I'm going to feed it through the same stay pocket hole that I fed my main truck wires through, just to hide them out of the way for future use. It just makes for a cleaner install. You can also bundle the wires up and just hide them behind the rear leg for future use. Our next step is to assemble our ramp. This just has 2 hooks on the bottom. I'm just going to cut them off. Remove them from the little hardware bag. We're now going to take my driver's side hook. You can tell it's driver's side because our little finger will be located on the inside, and a carriage bolt is going to be located on the outside of the hook. We'll spin the serrated flange nut off that's been supplied with the hook. We're going to fit it into the extrusion on the outside of the ramp. The holes are going to correspond. We'll take our serrated flange nut, spin it onto the bolt, and we'll take our 1/2-inch driver and secure it onto the ramp. Repeat for the other side. I'm now going to put my ramp inside the box. This can be done by just flipping your rear flap up, grabbing your ramp by the bottom, using your tailgate as an assist, lining it up with the ramp bucket, sliding it into place, shutting the rear flap, shutting the tailgate. We have one more step. Now we're ready for our very final step. I'm going to go back to our trusty box 6. I'm going to grab our 2 rectangular end caps. I'm going to fit them onto our rail. TruckBoss is now fully installed.